What up? What up? Welcome to today's episode of the TRG Agency podcast. Super excited to have a good friend of mine in the business. He is the founder and CEO of Out to Win, Jack Adler. Man, thank you so much for hopping on. How you doing today?
Josh, thanks for having me, man. Excited to be here. I'm doing pretty well. It's finally sunny in New York, so I can't complain.
Amazing. Dude, I know we were first coming up with this idea about doing the pod, you were one of my first calls. And it's because, and we're gonna get a little bit into your background and Out to Win. You're just such a shining example of the best parts of this industry, starting a business at such a young age, continuing to develop the business even as the market has changed. So before we get in sort of the Out to Win element, I want to pull back the curtain a little bit and go a little bit farther back in time. Out to Win was not your first foray into entrepreneurship. I saw on your LinkedIn that you and your sister had started a project called the $3 Challenge and then had a fair amount of success with that. So tell everyone a little bit about your experience with the $3 Challenge, what you learned there, and then we're going to spin it forward into all the incredible parts of your career you've been able to and all the successes you've had since then.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate all that a ton. It means a lot. And the $3 challenge is always fun to talk about. It's actually been just over 6 years since that launched, which sounds crazy to say out loud. And it makes me feel old. But that was my, like you said, my first foray into entrepreneurship, my first taste of what it felt like to take an idea and turn it into a reality. And it was like addicting enough so that I ended up rolling out a few other concepts over the course of a couple of years, eventually leading into Out to Win. And what the $3 challenge was is it was extremely simple. It was my sister and I urging others to donate $3 on social media for uh, different COVID-19 relief charities, such as the CDC, such as Feeding America, such as Direct Relief. And that urge was just a video on Instagram. It was a video of us explaining the rules, the directions. You had to post a picture on your Instagram story of something you couldn't wait to get back to after quarantine and tag three people, as well as donate $3 to this kind of like collective uh, donation form that we built, which we then dispersed into evenly into the three different charities. And we had raised over $70,000 through $3 donations from simply posting a video on Instagram and getting the network effect, the social effect to take place on Instagram. And the inspiration behind it, this might date those of you that are avid Instagram users. There was a graphic going around at the time, a trend where people were adding their favorite music albums into this picture of Bill Clinton holding up like different albums. It was like a template that you could add your like the pictures of albums into, and it went so viral. Everyone I knew was posting it. And my sister and I were like, what if we could take that concept and turn it into a positive impact? And that really is what sparked this idea of the $3 challenge.
Yeah. I must admit, you bringing up the Bill Clinton and then saying that 6 years you're feeling old, it's making me feel ancient. So thanks for that. That's a really cool part of the pod. So, when you and we first connected a couple of years ago, and something that always stood out to me is you see a lot of people say, "I wanna get into entrepreneurship." They want the elements of the success, but they're not willing to take that risk. And so you had said it when you were explaining the $3 challenge, you got excited by that risk. And you not only thought about it and said that would be cool, you took the action and built the company. Where do you think that mindset came from? Because so many people at a young age, especially and tell everyone when you started Out to Win, when you're in your early 20s, there's a lot of things that people say, but there's not a lot of things that people do. What do you think it was about you that made you actually able to take that step and that leap of faith?
Yeah, I mean, what I got excited about from the $3 challenge was like the ownership. And in this case, it was a nonprofit. Like I wasn't making any dollars off of it. It was just back to what I said earlier, the idea of taking an idea I had in my head and turning it into reality. I've kind of always just like looked at certain problems and things and like creatively thought of just like, hey, what if this existed? What if this solution were there? And it was always kind of like things that would just stay in my head. And then this $3 challenge showed me that if I actually put it out into the world, that it could become a successful reality. And that feeling of ownership that comes along with it, like the pride and the excitement, and just seeing it, like it exists as your baby growing in the world, is like what excited me. And I think that during college, I almost didn't even see it as a risk because one, the overhead behind it was so little. Two, the runway I had was I started it while I was a junior in college, so I had 2 full years uh, of being a student to kind of feel like I had room for failure, to where I had time to pretty much develop this idea, despite the fact that there was a very high likelihood I was going to fall on my face, and I did many times. Uh, and still do. But I really think that the combination of the excitement and just the runway I had is really what I'd say inspired and motivated me to go all in.
Yeah, it's incredible. Tell everyone a little bit about Out to Win, what it was when you first started it, what it's turned into, how many people you've working for you now.
Yeah, so today we are building an AI native influencer marketing agency that helps brands partner with athletes in a streamlined end-to-end capacity. So brands can pretty much input what they're looking for in an athlete marketing campaign, and we've built AI native workflows that help take that from end to end into actually executing and launching a campaign with athletes. Starting in 2021, we were helping athletes navigate the NIL landscape from its very inception in August of 21. So, like 30 days after legislation was passed, and quickly realized that the funnel of dollars and cents in the space were coming from brands paying athletes as marketing ambassadors. So, we began further aligning with brands as their go to resource, and kind of almost like fell into this uh, roadmap, this path of building a brand marketing agency. So over 2, 3 years, we were building a brand marketing agency, helping brands like Nerf, Reebok, Oakley build their first ever NIL campaigns, their first ever entrance into the space. And what we realized during that time was not only did brands want to work with athletes, but they wanted to work with the right athletes, but they struggled to find, but also vet who those right athletes were. So we made this evolution into pretty much building a data intelligence platform. So brands can type in what they're looking for in an athlete, and we could help surface the athletes that were the right fit using APIs, pulling from social media, using information based on their performance on the field, on the court, and tying it all together into this overall score that we call the out to win score, which pretty much helps you stack athletes against each other based on their off the field marketability strength. So, full circle, that has now evolved further into a managed service layer on top of it, where beyond providing the data intelligence, we're also delivering the outcomes. So brands are providing us with an activation budget, and we'll take their campaigns, as I referred to before, from end to end, delivering results, whether that be in the form of impressions on social media, website visitors, eventually, bottom of funnel sales conversions. So the reason I say full circle is because we started as an agency, we evolved into a tech, and now we've become this tech enabled agency.
Have you seen when you've gone to brand over the past 2 or 3 years, or even before then when you were representing the talent, have you seen that as the NIL space has matured from a marketing standpoint, that the request for what brands are looking for in terms of talent has evolved over time?
Oh, without a doubt. I'm seeing that every day, and it excites me because uh, it was of course immature for the reason that it was literally years 1, 2, 3 of the space, and brands are dipping their toes into the water, not really even knowing how to think of it. Like, is this like what can I expect out of this? Is it going to be an athlete that doesn't understand how to create content, or is it going to be similar and adjacent to our influencer marketing strategy? And now brands are quite literally using NIL as an influencer adjacent strategy. It's a growth channel that's helping, drive further awareness or traffic, whatever really the brand's main KPIs are behind their influencer marketing strategy. And then in a lot of ways, it's now in further maturity of the strategy being tied in with their paid media distribution in line with all different types of the full stack marketing strategy that a brand has. And that's really the future of this space beyond NIL. It's athlete influencer marketing, and as this influencer marketing era continues to evolve, athlete influencers slowly trailing behind it in a way where it's now starting to catch up and be entirely aligned as a category of its own.
Man, I'm totally with you. I joke with people all the time that when Juju Smith-Schuster was taking TikToks at the 50-yard line a couple of years ago, everyone thought he was absolutely crazy. And now all of these athletes are becoming creators, and the idea of an
Hmm.
athlete influencer, I feel like, you and I have similar backgrounds. I also started on the talent side and slowly transitioned over to the brand side. You would start your conversations with, "Well, my athlete's really good at the sport." And for the top 1% of the 1%, that may be able to carry you through to get all of the partnerships you want. But I
Hmm.
do totally agree that I'm now having more conversation with brands around the quality of the content, the quality of the audience, rather than how many points per game they're scoring or how many touchdowns they're scoring.
Without a doubt, there's correlation in how many followers an athlete has behind how good they are in their sport,
Mhm.
oftentimes, but a lot of times the athletes who post with more frequency, create higher quality content, their audience is more in tune with them on Instagram than an athlete who just throws touchdowns. They go see their Instagram, they click the follow button, but they're not truly engaged with their content to where it's the first post popping up in their feed in the algorithm. So a lot of times when you have a really strong athlete on the field that has a large following and it's, let's say it's directly tied in count to a creator who has that level of following. Usually, the creator's post will do better in organic engagement, just because that's where their followers live. That's where their followers mostly follow them. Um,
100%. Are
I
there
think
any
you're
Yeah, go ahead.
I think your point about Juju Smith is spot on. He was a trailblazer in this athlete influencer space, and now the new trailblazers are the likes of Jared McCain and uh, I mean the list goes on now. But back in the day, it was Juju Smith Schuster who was the only athlete that was making TikToks integrated into his life as an athlete, and it's honestly it opened up like a whole new gateway for that in sports.
I have a friend over at XL Management where Jared McCain is represented, and they have a roster of probably of upwards of 300 or 400 athletes across football, basketball, baseball, Olympic sports, and they have MVPs, they have all-stars, and my friend said to me that Jared McCain was the second biggest earner across
Hmm.
the entire roster, and
It's
he's
crazy.
certainly not the second highest I mean, that's a roster that has Nikola Jokic, Caitlin Clark, Tiger Woods, Bryce Hart. They have a ton of incredible names, but just speaks to the power of social. When NIL first came out, I think a lot of people made the connection to sort of the money-making sports or what they were considered then, men's basketball,
Yeah.
to some degree women's basketball, and then football. I know that you guys work across all sports. Are there sports that you now have in conversations where you didn't imagine such interest from brands 5 or 6 years ago, but you're seeing more campaigns, whether it be because of higher out to win scores for athletes, more sort of under the radar sports that are now you see coming more into the mainstream?
Without a doubt, I would say at this point, it's not even necessarily by sport. It's really just based on the creator's capabilities. There are more and more boutique influencer style agencies popping up in the NIL space. And honestly, I think it's a big reason why this athlete space is becoming more like an influencer space than the other way around. So yeah, I would say I've most predominantly seen track and field and volleyball as two rising sports where there are athletes who just seem to have more social media savviness. Uh, one team specifically, Nebraska volleyball, they're the top team in the nation, but they also have an unbelievable roster when you look at them stacked up against the rest on social media. And I think it's really interesting to see. I mean, that program itself is just unbelievable in what it's become. But I think it's really cool to look at like the programs off the field, off the court that are raking in NIL dollars because they've kind of created this halo effect uh, of social media virality through the content that they're making, but bringing it all together into this like almost like team owned IP, which is a really interesting aspect of NIL in general, is like the whole. concept of athletes being in a locker room together and having the ability to kind of pair up and team up for content.
Yeah, for those that don't know, Jack went to Syracuse, and I would be surprised if you would have said to me 10 years ago that you'd be looking at Nebraska volleyball and saying, I hope Syracuse basketball can take that direction. But
Yeah.
that's where we are in 2026. We're taking lessons from programs across the country. Man, what's the future of Out to Win? What are you looking for going into the rest of this year, going into next year? You're in year 6 now of the company?
We're entering year 5.
5.
August will bring year 5 for us. And yeah, what are we looking to? We're really looking to continue building the future of the sports influencer space. And that is it's a combination of helping brands continue to build successful result driven campaigns, but it's also a matter of helping agencies and universities continue to grow their impact in the space by bringing them opportunities uh, with those brands a part of our ecosystem. So we're excited and bullish on what the future holds. And I'd say a lot of it is just continuing to sit at the epicenter of the athlete influencer space.
You know, something that you and I were talking about right before we jumped on to record is when you're trying to create the future, you're always going to be looking at sort of the new trend and balancing, is this something that we want to have become a core part of our identity moving forward? Or is this something that we think is going to be a little bit of a flash in the pan and we don't want to get too over involved in? So there's a lot of buzzwords going around the industry right now. Things like AI, that, everyone wants to talk about metrics all the time. There's a million different ways to automize the businesses. You as a founder, how do you evaluate opportunities that come in front of you and say, this is something that we need to align ourselves with going forward versus we know what makes us great and we don't want to continue to change too much and lose sight of what got us here?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I think that there are always a lot of fads that pop up in business and entrepreneurship. Um, and you have to kind of like identify fad or like future. And uh, honestly, AI is something that we've identified as future and have really begun to integrate deeply into every part of our business that we can. I think it's transformed the way that businesses can be built going forward. When we're thinking about our future org design and staff count, like we are now able to optimize a single individual to run an entire division department of the company versus needing to scale that department up by headcount. So it's fundamentally changed the way we're thinking about building the business. It's fundamentally changed the way that we're thinking about building campaigns for brands, knowing that a lot of the margins of a service-based industry, of a service-based company, can become more and more similar to that of a SaaS-based business. So it's a it's a big uh, it's a big reason behind this evolution that we've taken on into becoming more of this AI native agency. Uh, and that all goes to answer your question with uh, the trend that we're taking and deeply integrating across the company is AI. And I think uh, I speak to most businesses when saying that it's something that's changing a lot of how we operate day to day.
100%. We have one more question for you. Can't thank you enough for your time. And then we're going to get you out of here with some rapid fire. We do have younger, college age students that watch the podcast. And I think a lot of people will look at you and say, well, that's awesome. I want to be like that guy. I want to start my company in my early 20s. I want to go through it. When you talk to college students, it can be a hard skill that you've learned. It can be a soft skill like perseverance. It can be really any general piece of advice. What's something that you say to students when they say, well, Jack, how can I be like you, during and after college?
Yeah, I'd say during college, something that I focused on intensely myself and urge college students I talked to today to focus on intensely themselves. And it's a cliche thing because it's an answer that many people give, but I like to put even further emphasis on it is networking. I leveraged the Syracuse alumni network so hard during my time there to where, and I'd say beyond Syracuse, just the fact that I was a college student, I was almost reaching out as if I was in business development trying to sell something, but I wasn't. I was just trying to meet people and build up my just like my Rolodex of relationships. And it directly translated now into relationships that I have that have become supporters of Out to Win today. And a lot of that, I'd say it was finding something and a reason to reach out at Syracuse, which for me was the Syracuse Sport Business Conference. In a bit of a similar fashion to this, like I would bring on sports business executives, industry leaders, and ask questions and interview them. And there was a panel of college students who could ask questions and gain some of their own insight. And I was the host, so like I would reach out asking them to join, and just having like a reason to reach out that also acted as like a almost like an exciting honor for that individual to come back and speak to a group of students. It allowed me to form this relationship with industry leaders that I've now carried on into my time as an entrepreneur. But like when you're building a business, you really do need a support system of people to help you get off the ground. And for me, I built that before I started the business. And it can be difficult when you try to start building that once the business is already launched because you're going to be busy and you're not going to have time to take, you know, as many calls as I had the time to take when I was just a networking college student. Um, so that was almost like my like a gauntlet that I put myself through before actually launching Out to Win, and it set me up for success. And I recommend it to all other student entrepreneurs.
Man, I remember my sports admin professor at University of Miami would say to us, the difference between before walking across that stage and after walking across that stage is when you're in school, you can put, you know, students. And once you walk across that stage, you're going to write unemployed if you don't have a job. And that's quite a difference when reaching out to someone on LinkedIn because everyone will give time to a student, but not everyone's going to want
Yeah,
to give time to someone that's looking for a job because they obviously know the first question is going to be, I'm looking for a job. Can I work for you? And when you're starting your own company as a junior in college, people probably aren't anticipating, nor was it seems like you're looking for a job.
exactly.
So it makes total sense. Man, let's get out of here with some rapid fire. Again, thank you so much for your time. Rapid fire meaning rapid. So first thing that comes to mind. Let's start with dream partnership. It can be a creator, it can be a brand, someone Out to Win has not worked with yet that you're excited to work with in the future.
Yeah, we recently ran a an NBA playoffs campaign for Amazon, and my dream partnership for that was Tyrese Maxey. Unfortunately, the Sixers didn't get far enough, so that one's not happening this year. But hopefully, we can make it happen in the future.
Yeah, it's as soon as Joel Embiid and Paul George stop making $120 million a year, the future of the Sixers will look very, very bright.
Yeah, let's don't get me started.
State of Syracuse athletics in one word.
Evolving.
That's why you're a founder, man. You know how to put a positive spin on things. I see that you play a little bit of basketball, NBA comp. Who do you play like?
TJ McConnell is who my friends like to refer me to. Pass
Amazing.
first point guard, gritty, will make a team better.
You were in Philly most of your life. What's your favorite part about Philly?
Favorite part about Philly, the cliche answer is the cheesesteaks, of course. But my honestly, like my favorite part actually is just like the sports culture, the sports city. You feel it everywhere you go.
That's where we're gonna end. Next Philly team to win a championship is
Yeah, I mean, because it's coming up next. We got the Phillies this October, and then we got the Eagles this February. So we'll go Phillies because it's sooner, but
as long as Don Mattingly is the coach, the team might never lose again.
we'll see. We'll see. I don't know how all of a sudden players start hitting better once the coach leaves.
Yeah, it's a funny thing how that works. Man, thank you so much for the time. Before we get out of here, where can everyone follow you Out to Win? Plug any recent work. Let everyone know where they can follow along with all the incredible opportunity, work that you and your team are doing.
Yeah, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I love connecting with people on there. It's just my name. Our Instagram is Out to Win. It's OUT, the number two, WIN. And then our website's outtowin.io.
Man, you are the absolute best. Jack is one of the bright young founders in this space. So really appreciate you giving us the time and we'll talk soon.
For sure. Yeah. Thank you for having me, Josh.
Thanks.